there's not a lot of wins in recruitment. You'll know that if you've done recruitment for more than 5 minutes. You don't win very often compared to the amount you lose. So let's celebrate every time we do. I talked in the last video about how to maintain motivation and momentum throughout the day with your calls. But another great way is creating micro goals. So you've got your list of 100 people that you want to call. Looking at that can be quite demoralizing, especially if you've made 20, 30 calls and you've had no, and you've still got another 70 or 80 calls to make. It's quite hard to keep that motivation up and think, actually, I'm going to smash these. I'm going to keep going. So a little trick that I use and get my students to use is creating micro goals. So yes, you've got 100 calls you want to make, but let's make the first goal 10. Let's break it into chunks of 10, because 10 is a really easy number, right? You can easily do that. I used to use a gate mark process and just do my little gate marks every time I made a call, have a little gate mark. I could visually see how many I'd done. And the fact that that was going up helped me. I'd have a little chart so that I could see that it was filling up. So it wasn't just gate marks all over the page. It was a certain amount of boxes and they were getting filled in, each gate for each box. And I could see those getting filled up rather than seeing that list, big list there. I can actually visually see that in the act of making that mark. There was another one, I'd done another one. And every time I did 10, that's when I kind of rewarded myself. So I was like, cool, I can have a coffee now. Because I love coffee, I drink way too much of it. So I restricted myself and only let myself have a coffee once I'd done a certain thing. But just focusing on that is just making calls for the sake of calls. So I also made micro goals around decent money-making activities. So getting a CV to a job, getting a meeting booked, getting in a job, agreeing terms. So break those down as well. So, okay, you might want to get 3 CVs out a day, but don't focus on your 3, focus on 1. I've got 1 done. Great. Reward myself. Now let's focus on another 1 and another 1. It might be that you want to have 10 meetings booked. So let's aim for 2. Let's break down into 2s. That's a much nicer goal to make rather than going, oh, I've booked 6 meetings today. I've still got 4 to go. You're like, oh, I've booked 2 meetings. Great. I've booked another 2. Great. I've booked another 2. Great. You're rewarding yourself for those small wins because there's not a lot of wins in recruitment. You'll know that if you've done recruitment for more than 5 minutes. You don't win very often compared to the amount you lose. So let's celebrate every time we do. Let's enjoy those little wins that we have because that ultimately keeps that momentum up, keeps that motivation up, keeps that enjoyment up. So let's not only focus on the calls that we're making, let's focus on the activity that's generated from those calls. Because ultimately, that's what's going to make you the money. Just because you're making 100 calls a day doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of money. You need to focus on the results of the calls as well. So micro goals around the amount of calls you're making and the activity that comes from those calls really helps because I can tell you if you're going through 100 calls a day and you get to call 80, you're struggling at that point. Even if you put everything in place, it's still a lot of calls. But if you can go, actually, this is what I've achieved through those 80 calls, that's great. I've only now got 1 meeting to book or 1 CV to send. I've got 20 calls to do that. That's easy. I can do that. Let's focus on these 20 calls. Let's get that. Rather than, oh, I've done 80 calls. Feels like a slog. And you haven't tracked what you've got out of it. I haven't got anything from it. There's a big difference there. So create those micro goals and focus on those throughout the day. When your motivation starts to feel a little bit lacking and you're starting to struggle and not look forward to your next few calls, have a look at those micro goals. Which ones have you achieved? That's going to make you feel good because you've actually moved the needle forwards for the day. So create micro goals.